Today we will be reviewing the two main methods of graphing. The two main methods of graphing are slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, and standard form, which is also referred to as the cover-up method, ax plus by equals c. For slope-intercept form, the two important variables here are going to be m and b. M represents the slope of a line, which is rise over run. B represents the y-intercept of a line. 0, y represents where the line is crossing the y-axis. Standard form I'll come back to in a moment. Before I continue, I'd like you to complete one other section of your notes. Number 2 talks about the equations of horizontal lines and vertical lines. So let's get into that before I do some examples. Horizontal lines are lines that are of the equation y equals a value. Horizontal lines go through the y-axis. So this particular line would be y equals 3 because it's going through the y-axis at 3. Vertical lines are lines in the equation x equals a number. Vertically, lines are going through the x-axis. This particular line would be x equals -3 because it is a vertical line going through the x-axis at -3. All right, now I'm going to go a little bit out of order. I would like to discuss with you slope-intercept form, and I'm going to use example C. It's y equals 2x minus 1. In standard form, we need slope and we need y-intercept. So when we look at letter C, y equals mx plus b, the m value here, or my slope, is 2 over 1 because slope is rise over run. The b value is going to be a -1. When you graph using slope-intercept form, you begin with b. B is on the y-axis. This particular graph is beginning at -1 on the y-axis. From that point, you're going to move with m. M tells you to rise over run. From this particular point, I'm rising 2, 1, 2, running 1. 1, 2, running 1. Rise, +1. You can also take this in the other direction. If 2 over 1 equals 2, well, -2 over -1 also equals 2, telling us to go down 2 and to the left 1, down 2 to the left 1. Grab a straight edge if you need to. Connect those points with a line, solid line, arrows on both ends. Now I'd like to discuss standard form. Standard form is the equation ax plus by equals c. This is referred to often as the cover-up method. What you will do is you will make a small table. You will find where the graph crosses the y-axis. We know that when a graph crosses the y-axis, it is always of the ordered pair 0, y. Think for a moment. If you could replace the x value with 0, you could solve. Likewise, for an x-intercept, if I could replace the x value with a 0, I could also solve. Let's try it. All right, so when you're doing this by hand, I would draw a small table. I have one already typed in, but I'm going to draw one for sake of an example. I want to begin by placing a 0 in the x position. If you were to put a 0 in place of the x, anything times 0 is 0. So picture it not being there. You now have the equation -9y equals -18. We need to get y by itself. Here, y is going to equal a +2. So when x was 0, y equaled 2. And that's an ordered pair. When x is 0, y is 2. Now try it, but in the other order. Now we want to try where the y value is a 0. If the y value is a 0, anything times 0 is 0, so it's as if that completely goes away. And you now have the equation 4x equals -18. So if 4x equals -18, and x is what I'm trying to find, if I divide both sides by 4, x is going to equal a -4.5. So when a 0 went in for the y value, x was a negative 4.5, which can also be graphed. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Didn't go up any. We know from geometry that between any 2 points there is exactly 1 line. So by finding these 2 special points, we were able to graph without needing slope-intercept form. All right, now this is example A in that first row of examples. This can be solved using standard form, using the cover-up method, but I'd like to show you how to take something that's in standard form and convert it to slope-intercept form. As freshmen, most of you preferred using y equals mx plus b, but several of you struggled with the algebra skills to actually get y by itself. That's the purpose of this example. If you wanted to get something that's not in slope-intercept form into slope-intercept form, you need to get the y by itself, meaning the 3x needs to move and the 4 needs to move. When you're getting y by itself, you always need to move this x term by addition or subtraction first. Here, the 3x is positive, so to move it to the other side, I'm going to subtract it. 4y equals, you can write 12 minus 3x, but because in slope-intercept form, I need the mx term to be first, I'm going to list it first and the positive 12 second. Next, I need to separate the 4 from the y. Because those are being held together by multiplication, I'm going to undo it using division. What I do to one side, I do to the entire other side. Here, y equals negative 3/4 x plus 3. If you think about graphing this, your slope is negative 3/4. Your y-intercept is 3. So when you go to graph, I would begin at 3 on the y-axis, down 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4. This graph, or this equation, could be graphed by using standard form. So let me show you that quickly before I move on. If we talk about this equation in standard form is where we're looking for the x and y intercepts. If I were to put a 0 in place of the x, it's as if it's not even there, leaving me with the equation 4y equals 12. Divide by 4, divide by 4. The y value would be 3 when the x value was 0. If I try it where the y value is 3, if I plug a 3 in for that, well, anything times 0 is 0, leaving me with this equation. Divide by 3, x equals 4. So in this particular case, when y is 0, x would be 4. Leaving the equation, or the graph, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you already graphed it from the previous, we had y equals negative 3/4 x plus 3. It's the exact same graph. Begins at 3, went down 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4. The method that you choose is completely up to you. All I ask is that you stick with a method or make sure you just know both of them. Letter D. Letter D is already in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to identify my m value for my slope and my b value, which is the y-axis, the y-intercept. I begin with b, and then I move with m. Because rise over run is a fraction, this is telling me to go down 1. 2 is a positive value, 1, 2. Down 1 over 2, and I can go the other way as well. Excuse me. Letter E is not in any format. If you want to graph it in slope-intercept form, you can get y by itself pretty simply here. Y equals negative 3/4 x plus 2, and then it can be graphed. Notice with both of these lines, because their slope is negative, the line is going downhill. The slope is negative, the line is going downhill. Letter F and letter G you can look at number 2 in your notes. This is going through the y-axis at 3. 1, 2, 3, through the y-axis. It is horizontal. This next one here is going through the x-axis at -2. It is a vertical line. Oops, I think it should have gone there. That concludes the lesson on graphing lines.